So now we are at the stage where we will talk about some complex scenarios in the expense management module. Now, one of the things I have noticed is that you can actually file your expense in Business Central or your expense report in Business Central, where you probably have to handle or deal with more than one currency. Now, that's something which is slightly different to other usual header line kind of a document module of Business Central. Like you take example of sales, it doesn't work that way. I mean, you take one currency on the header, and that entire lines of that document follows that currency, which makes sense, right? You make sales in one currency, and it either do it full or partial invoicing. It kind of follows that whole currency all the time. Same goes to purchase, right? But with expense report, you can basically do, you can kind of manage your expense report, or you can file your expense report in more than one currency. So let's take a quick scenario. Uh, I try to keep it crisp, but let let me walk you through it. Now, what happens is that it depends on your organization policy whether you want to file your expense based on your posting date or your expense date. Now, there are two different things. For example, within a month, there could be a case that you have been, dealing with multiple expenses. Like in the starting of the month, you went to, I don't know, from let's say India, I went to Vietnam for directions. And then before that, I went to Denmark for days of knowledge. Now, at the end of the month, when I file my expense report, I basically deal with two different currencies, right? One was Danish krona, and then another one was the Vietnam currency, uh, which I have to deal with. And then there were some other expenses like cab and taxi for which I need to go to airport, and from where there I came back and travel within the city, and that was in INR. Now it depends on my company policy that whether I will get reimbursed based on the posting date of the transaction, which is going to be the date when I'm filing the expense report, or it is going to be based on the expense date of my transaction, which was maybe starting in the month or when I basically traveled, right? So that's basically how it works. Um, no matter what, you will always be reimbursed based on your reimbursement currency, which is being taken on the header. So, for example, let's say I'm in India. So, if my company decides to pay me in INR, okay, so I will get paid in INR, but the the Danish krona or the Vietnam currency will get exchanged to my INR currency based on either expense date or based on either posting date. Okay, and it makes sense to certain degree because I'll take you. I take one example. Why? For example, at the beginning of the month when I travel to Denmark, there may be a case that maybe X amount may be charging me for, let's say, 1 lakh rupees. Okay, but at the time of the end of the month, if I get paid based on the day I'm filing my expense report, it might be in conversion rate, I might lose some amount, maybe 80,000 INR or something. So I basically lose 20,000 INR in that transaction. But if it's on expense date, no matter what, if I pay 1 lakh at the beginning of the month uh, in Danish currency, at the end of the month I will get 1 lakh INR. Okay, but if it's on posting date, right? No matter whatever exchange rate I paid at that time, the day I'm filing my expense is going to be my posting date, and that is the day which will be considered for the exchange rate of the amount. Okay, so key takeaways are, your lines can have different currencies. You know, and there are some other things. You will always get reimbursed by your reimbursement currency. So let's take an example. I know it is slightly confusing, but it will make more sense if we take an example. So I go to my expense report, and I will try to file a new one, EH. And for now, at least I'll keep my reimbursement currency here. And that's a very important field. Still now, we were not using it at all because we were kind of dealing with some straightforward examples, but this one is a slightly complex one. So I'd keep it, blank for now. And I say I took airplane, but before that, before doing anything, let's go to expense agent setup first. I'll tell you why. All right, so that's basically the field I was talking about. So exchange rate for expenses. This basically decides that what will be your date that will be considered in order to get the exchange rate or the currency factor of the line. So I'll show you. So for now, it's expense date. Okay, keep that in mind. So now, I said the expense date was, let's say, 6/1/27. That makes sense. And I paid in, let me see, Danish krone. Okay. And I don't know, maybe 1,500. And you know what? I'll also do one more thing. This shows card. For instance, I will, because or else will not get any reimbursement amount from this. Um, yeah, let's do cash. Let's do cash. Okay, why I'm saying this because I need a reimbursement amount to show you a better example. Because in this case, the card will pay directly to the company based on the demo data. But let's keep it that way. And I also, probably took a cab or something. So what I will do now is that I will take. Uh, I would like to keep a very simple example. Don't want to complicate it. Okay, so I'll take airline again, and I'll make this cash. And this time I paid in INR. Okay, and this INR was like, I don't know, 1,000. Yeah, airplane tickets are not 1,000 INR in India very soon. But yeah, let's see what happened here. Okay, so I have two lines. My company's LCY is US dollars. So if I go to home, help and support, and then inspect pages and data, let's see what happens here. Close, stay here. And I will say currency factor. Okay, so now you can see it says currency factor is 69.43. And if I go to this one, it says 8.56, right? So let's now go to currencies. So we take two examples. One was INR. So for INR, it was taking it like this because I took a small Excel with me. Okay, so it was 100 divided by 1.441, which was my exchange rate amount and my relational exchange rate amount. Yeah, so that's what it was, right? So it took 69 point something there. And if I talk about DKK, I think, yeah, so that should be 111.68. So let's keep that as well in tab. 11.68, and I will make this 100. Okay, so that's 8.56, right? And that makes sense, right? We just basically take the exchange rate, and based on that, it calculates my reimbursement amount, right? So it's straightforward calculation. Okay. Now, what happens if I try to post this? Because right now it's considering this rate, and if I post it, let's see what happens. So if I post it, it goes here to GL, and it all matters when it goes to GL, right? Uh, so yeah, rounding, it has nothing on it, so I can see it goes to 0. At least I hope. Yeah, it's all 0. So I can see 175, that was for airline, 1440, that was for airline, and employee gets the whole amount of 189. So that's basically the reimbursement amount LCY, which basically went to the employee's account, right? Now let's try to change the scenario a little bit. Yeah. So what I'm going to do here is expense posting date was 6/1/2027. So I'm going to change it to, let's say, let's see, what is today's date? I'll make it 2026 here, and then I'm gonna make this one slightly before that, if I'm not wrong. What will it be? 5. So I'm basically, what I'm trying to do is that I'm going to make an expense before the date of my uh, expense. Okay, so I'm filing my expense on today's date, and I did some expense on the month of May. So let's see what happens. And before that, what I'm going to do, because I need to see some currency exchange rate difference as well. So I'll go INR, I'll go here. Okay, so up until that point, the rate was that. So what I'm going to do is that for today's date, I'm going to change this to, let's say, 1.5. Yeah, let's try 1.5. And for DKK, I'll try to do same thing. Let's see. Go here, DKK. Oh boy. So yeah, let's make it 12. Let's see. All right. So I changed the exchange rate. So now what I'm going to do is that I'll remove this. I'll remove this. I have two lines. I'll say DKK 100, and then I'll say INR is 1000. So let's see what happens now. Oops, sorry. So go help and support. Inspect pages and data, and currency factor. So it shows 8.56, which makes sense. And this one shows 69.43. That makes sense as well. Now the thing is that posting date of my header is 7/6. So it should, at the time of posting, because every time when I post something, it should consider the expense should be paid to the employee based on the based on the expense date. But for my ledger, I still have to make my accounting for based on my posting date, which is today. So let's see what happens now. It's going to be interesting, I guess. Okay. So let's see this way. So it went 12 here, 15 to this, and then the entire amount went to 26. Let's see. Yep. Yep, 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 yep. You know what? Let me make this as 1,000 as well. Make more sense. Yeah. So the 175 was basically 116. Now, so that makes more sense. Okay. So now what happens is that yeah. So the employee gets 131. 120 was this, and 15 was this. Now, if you notice that there are two different GL accounts now, which has like minus 3.20, and then you have this one for 6.60. If I go here, you will see it has a rounding account on it. Yeah, it's payable rounding, and then you have the payable rounding again. So what is this account? So if you go to, I guess, your employee posting group. Yeah. So I took cash in my case. So that was this, and that was this. Uh, yeah, I think. Yeah, that was your payable account, and that's your debit account and credit account. So it should be somewhere from this. Oh, maybe the expense posting group. Saw it somewhere. Don't know where. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, debit rounding and credit rounding. Yeah, so it was this account, payables invoice rounding. So what happens is that in general, you file the expense, you try to post it on today's date, right? So to the employee, you're going to pay him based on whatever he has, used on that day. Okay, which was 131. That makes sense. Now, what happened is that when he paid on that day, you get 131. The employee gets 131. You still have to maintain your books of account, because for you the both the amounts were kind of differentiating with these two highlighted values, those highlighted two GL accounts, minus 320 on this, because at the end of the day the value is slightly different when you have filed the expense report based on the exchange rate. You still have to maintain your books of accounts, so whatever the difference goes on that day, it basically goes to the invoice rounding account based on the sign of the amount, right? Now, let's try to change the scenario slightly a little bit. And what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to make the currency here as INR, for an instance. So it will ask me boilerplate that I have changed the currency. What should be this? So now you will notice that uh, it was 1000 INR, and I will get 1000 INR, right? Which basically makes sense. So my reimbursement amount in INR, now you can see the currency here got changed as well, is 1000 INR. And based on the conversion rate of INR to LCY, INR, the amount converted to DKK is 8,000. So if I try to post this one, it is going to be something like this. Yeah. So it's straightforward. I mean, in this case, you won't have a rounding difference because you're going to basically pay the employee in INR whatever he was looking for, right? What else? Now, the next thing would be that what happens if I change the expense agent setup, and I'll say no matter what currency has been used, I would like to calculate my expenses based on my posting date. Okay, so we'll slightly make things more interesting. And if I go back to my currencies now, I will change INR again to, let's say, tomorrow's date. And this time I'm going to make it, I don't know, 2 maybe. And then I'm going to make DKK as probably 15. Okay. So now what happens? I will change the posting date to this. If I change the posting date, it will try to recalculate the lines. Let's see what's the currency factor now. It should not be 6 point something because it should be based on posting date now. Why do I keep clicking on this one? Yeah, so it's 66 points something. And this guy for INR is now 69.43. Okay. So let's take a look. Yeah, I think I made a mistake with the date. Yes. It's still going to be the same. I will remove the currency as well for a second. Okay, now we'll see the difference. So 8.56, that makes sense. And this one is 69.43. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So what I'm trying to say is that now, no matter what, your reimbursement or expense currency factor will be calculated based on your based on your posting date. So if I try to do a preview post now, it doesn't really matter because it's never going to have any difference in the rounding. So it's still going to be 170 for 170, 150 for your DKK, and then another one for your INR transaction. So I know it's slightly complex in understanding, but if you try to make the expense and basically try to get your head around this, you will definitely get the logic. So it's basically if you try to see the core rules. Expense report header contains the reimbursement currency. Employee will always be paid in the reimbursement currency that you have selected on the header. Expense line can have different currencies. Now, the type of setup defines whether you are going to be paid based on when I say going to be paid, it's basically the exchange rate of your payment, right? So that exchange rate will be considered based on your posting date or based on your expense date. So that's basically organization policy, right? That decides. So yeah, so you will get the rate of that date, and then accordingly you will get reimbursed. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Feel free to drop any questions. I know it's slightly complex, but it's also pretty important to understand that the system has this capability that you can basically file your expense report in more than one currencies. All right, thank you. Have a good day. Bye.